Welcome and thank you for tuning in to A Sound Constitution on CHLY 1017 FM with Ryan, Matt, Aminder, Alicia, Matthew, and Emily. We are fourth year BSN students at Vancouver Island University in Nanaimo, BC. We are working to demystify health issues affecting our community, bringing you evidence-based information about healthcare. This information is for educational purposes only and does not replace the advice of your primary healthcare provider. We would like to start our show by acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Nanaimo people, with a broadcasting range that overlaps the Kwetson and Saliamon territories. This acknowledgement is done with gratitude to the Nanaimo people and with the intention to increase awareness about truth and reconciliation processes and efforts on Vancouver Island. Additional information and resources surrounding Nanaimo history, reconciliation, protocol, and land acknowledgement can be found on our Facebook and YouTube pages.
Hello everyone, my name's Aminder and I'm with my co-host Matt.
Hello, thanks for joining us today.
In today's episode, we are going to explore the impact that the coronavirus has had on youth. As some of you may already know, this semester we are exploring the ways that COVID-19 has impacted humanity across a lifespan. Starting with the very young, we are examining the impact of COVID-19 and how it has and is affecting people in a wide variety of ways. Not just their physical health, but mental health, work, education, and so on. Let's begin with defining the youth first. Youth is defined by the United Nations as people between the ages of 15 and 24. Youth today are more educated and better connected than ever before, with nearly 100% using the internet on a daily basis, 77% following news and current affairs, and 93% using social networking sites. And that information is taken by Stats Canada 2019.
Yeah, that's right. And also, youth in Canada are extremely diverse. According to Statistics Canada, between 1996 and 2016, the percentage of youth belonging to a visible minority group has doubled, and 74% of youth are friends from a different ethnic group. COVID-19 has impacted youth in a huge variety of ways as well. Many youth struggle with working lower paying jobs, such as serving jobs, and which have been drastically impacted or even eliminated because of the pandemic. And many businesses that normally employ youth have also been economically affected, resulting in a lot less opportunity for the youth of today.
Yeah, exactly. Since youth are stuck at home, it is important to talk about the challenges they are facing now and the strategies to overcome isolation and to help with the social connection. So, to begin with, let's discuss how one can maintain social connection while at home. In these times of difficulties, it's more important than ever that we are supported and are there for each other. While dating and meeting new people that we had taken for granted has been totally transformed. So, doing this and maintaining a relationship in this new world of social distancing is a huge challenge.
Yes, that's right. As some of you may know, this semester with the Sound Constitution, we're exploring the impact that COVID-19 has had on everybody at different age groups throughout their life. This particular episode, we're focusing on youth, and the theme of this episode is how youth can maintain a social connection while at home or while being isolated. And we're going to divide our show into three different parts. So one part is going to be youth who are already in a relationship, and the next one is youth who are wanting to start like expanding their social bubble, meeting more people, and youth who are creating online connections.
Yeah, so let's start with talking about youth who's already in a relationship, who is already in a bubble. So, how do you protect your bubble? As per recommendations of WHO and CDC, They recommend limiting your social circle to 6 people, and the same 6 people, not 6 different people each time. And do you want to say anything on that? Do you have any insight on that?
I think it's just important when you're adding people to your bubble. I mean, nobody can tell you like who you want to have in your bubble. It's a very personal thing, but
Mm-hmm.
just be aware of those people and the risks that those people have. Like, are they being responsible? Are they being safe? Do they work in like a more risk-prone kind of environment? Like if you work in a hospital, your chance of contracting COVID-19 is a little bit higher, but they might also be taking more precautions.
Mm-hmm.
So just being aware of who's in your bubble and
And
what sort of
trusting them. Yeah.
exactly trusting them is huge.
Yes. And the second part is like youth in a relationship but wanting to start in-person socialization, which is like creating a new bubble. So for that, like what are the other assessments you have to have in your mind? Like what do you think could be the risk of being exposed?
For sure. And I think you also have to think about the people that you're seeing and their situation. Like all it
Mm-hmm.
really comes down to is just being mindful of everybody because some people that you're seeing might have relatives who are really sick
Mm-hmm.
and their risk or like the consequences of them getting sick might be way higher than yours. So even if you personally are maybe not that worried about getting sick, if you have a really strong immune system or you feel like you're willing to accept more risk than what other people might be willing to accept. You just have to be really respectful of other people's situations, right?
All the time, and you have to use your own protection, like taking your own precaution, considering who is in your bubble and how safe they are being. For example, like if you want to start like seeing somebody who works in a long-term care facility, of course the rules and regulations are to always wear a mask, stay 6 feet away, wash your hands, etc. But how do you trust them if they're doing it? For example, the sometimes when they go to their staff room, right? I feel like not all of them have their masks on. Not all of them would be like, following those 6 feet apart distance. They're usually sitting on the same table, eating, sharing food. So it's just always keep in mind that you are always like being protected. You're trusting your own people, like you're thinking and making sure the other person who you're gonna date or who you're gonna see, they're also taking the same right precautions.
Yeah, for sure. And like, there's a huge amount of trust involved in that. What are other people doing? And like, you have to always try and remember, like, the 6 people that you might be seeing, they are all seeing another 6 people. And I don't want to
Exactly,
say like
exactly.
seeing like they're in a relationship, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean. Like they're interacting with
yes,
those people.
true.
So
Yeah, very true. And you have no idea where else like they're seeing, like are they also having in the same bubble? Like we are never sure. So making sure you're protected, you're taking the right precautions, right measures, that's what is most important.
mhm.
And for that you can always use COVID COVID self-assessment app. I think this app is like really handy. It always like support you to track your symptoms. It gives you latest updates. You can always trust the resources. This online tool determines whether you need further assessment or testing for COVID 19. To get this app, you can download this on your cell phones. Just search BC COVID 19 support on your App Store, or you can simply go to their website and just type in COVID 19 self assessment. Um, in both, like in the app as well as on the website, it will take you to the self assessment tool where you can access this tool where they would ask you questions related to your health or any COVID like symptoms. For example, if you have any difficulty breathing or if you're feeling confused. And after all those questions, they will let you know if you have any symptoms of COVID 19 or you need any further assessment.
Yeah, there's lots of resources out there for people, and we'll make sure to include some of them on our social media for people who might want to get more information.
Yeah, exactly. So that was our second part, which was youth in a relationship and wanting to start in person socialization. The third part is youth creating online connection. And before I begin, the reason we are talking about a relationship for the youth is I feel like a good relationship is the foundation for good social and mental health. And it's also the best coping for lack of day-to-day and face-to-face interaction. Due to this pandemic, I feel like youth of today has been limited to their bubble. Traveling has become difficult for people, even with the long distance relationships. Online interaction certainly help, but it cannot match the interaction we have face to face. I feel like humans are social creatures, long for social and face to face interactions. So for that, I'm gonna talk about part three, that we are encouraged to keep our social bubble small. And for some people, travel, as I said, is not an option. Some relationships have had to shift to long distance to online in order to survive. So I feel like this is really important to have a good social sport. Not just having a girlfriend or boyfriend. Social sport could be like even with your friends, your relatives, anyone. Like social support system is very important during these days for youth, and I feel like for everyone. Some people can often feel lonely as social interactions decrease. I feel like having a relationship and friends is even more important today.
Yeah, that's very true. Social support in whatever way it comes from, whoever it's with, if it's your family, friends, or a relationship, it's so important, especially during stressful times. Like life is stressful enough, let alone without having a pandemic to deal with on top of everything. So you can never have too much social support. And even if it's just somebody that you're talking to that you can vent to, like
Mm-hmm.
super important.
Yeah,
Um, but being in a long distance relationship, any sort of relationship, or romantic, or just with family, friends, whatever it is, when it's online or over long distance, there's many different challenges that
mm-hmm.
come along with that in communication, and a lot of it relies on trust and communication.
That's true. Hmm. And so, because of that, especially for this part, we'll be talking more about some ways to deal with like forming new relationships as well as maintaining the relationships in the challenging time of COVID-19. And so, we will be interviewing someone who has personal experience both in maintaining a long distance relationship as well as coping with many of the issues that the youth of today are dealing with in their relationships. And the person is none other than my own husband, Herman.
Yay! Yeah, super exciting. We had a really good interview. It was a real pleasure to have him on our show. Really appreciate him taking the time out of his day to come along for the interview. The main reason we chose him for today's episode is because he has very relevant personal experience in maintaining a long distance relationship while balancing work and school, as you can attest to because you guys got married a little while ago, last year.
Last
So,
year.
I mean, that's proof that he has he's doing something right anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, balancing work and school and growing a relationship despite all of those challenges. You and him not only started, built, and maintained your relationship as girlfriend and boyfriend, but you continued to grow it, and now you can call each other husband and wife after
That's
you got
right.
married. So,
Yes, yes.
and being in a long distance relationship and some of the struggles that go along with that is an issue that you've had to deal with personally. And even though there wasn't a pandemic going on when you guys were in the long distance relationship, a lot of the struggles and challenges that you guys faced are very applicable to
Hmm.
today, not just in romantic relationships, but in any type of long distance relationship.
That's right.
So yeah, let's have a listen to my interview with Harmon. And like I said before, he has a lot of very relevant experience in maintaining and being in a long distance relationship, and offers some really good insights in how to navigate that and some strategies to deal with being in a long distance relationship in general. But they're also very applicable to managing one in the time of a pandemic.
So, up next, we have the interview with Herman and Matt.
I'm here with my friend Harmon, who has some experience in dating long distance and in maintaining a relationship during the time of COVID. And he recently got married, so congratulations on that, Harmon.
Thank you, Matt.
And thank you very much for joining us today and having this interview.
yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to share my experience with you and the listeners.
So you've been on the island here for about a year and a bit, and before that you were living in Vancouver, which is where you and Amin met. Is that right?
Well, I was on the mainland. She was on the island, and that's how we met through Facebook, social networking, and that is when we our interactions began through Facebook, and we started talking and texting and messaging and talking over the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how our relationship began.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
Well, we met 2.5 years ago. We were in a long distance for 2.5 years, and then we got married.
And so how long were you in a long distance relationship for before you guys got engaged?
Uh, yeah, we were about 2.5 years in a long distance relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were.
So thinking back to that time when you were just beginning a new relationship and still getting to know each other and that sort of thing, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced, do you think?
Well, the biggest, some of the challenges that we faced was just taking out the time every
Mm-hmm.
day to talk to each other, right? Even though we were like a 2 hour ferry ride away, it still felt like worlds apart at times,
For
right?
sure.
And just like in a long distance relationship, when you're so far apart from each other,
Mm-hmm.
you when you meet after a month or after 2 months, you want to make sure that you have that day and you spend that day, you do something special,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's another challenge that you put pressure on yourself and the relationship to
Mm-hmm.
do something that special. And yeah, like just managing our time together, like that's a challenge. And not being there when she needed me the most, right? She wasn't feeling well, or I
Yeah.
wasn't feeling well, and when I needed her,
Mm-hmm.
that was not possible at all. And she had just started her nursing program when
Mm-hmm.
we got into the relationship, and that's very challenging,
For sure, that's
right?
stressful.
And she was doing a full time job along with her nursing program.
Mm-hmm.
That's more challenging. And I also had two jobs
Oh, wow.
at that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just yeah, despite being busy and despite being all that with school and work, we still uh, took time from our
Mm-hmm.
daily life to talk to each other, text each other, message, and video calls.
Yeah.
And yeah, like sometimes she would be studying and I would be doing my own thing, but we would still be there
Mm-hmm.
uh, through video calls. Like
Mm-hmm.
we would still be seeing each other, even though I was doing something else, she was studying. But as long as you're there for each other, you can see each other. Uh, you're like it helps your mind to basically just be calm,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that the other person's there whenever you need them.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Another one of the challenges that we faced constantly was internet connections, technical issues. We would not have internet connection sometimes, and we couldn't talk to each other over the video calls. Sometimes it would just be so slow that the video calls would lag, and we would get frustrated. So it's also important that you don't get frustrated and be patient. And yeah, just try to, even if you cannot talk over video calls, just text or just to make a regular phone call and talk to each other over that.
Do you think being in a long distance relationship puts a different kind of stress on relationships than what you would have otherwise?
Yeah, it is different, and it puts a different kind of pressure on your relationship and on you. It's the pressure of taking out time every day to talk to your loved one. Yeah, we would sometimes we would talk after 2 days, and we would have so much to share, and it would feel like we missed so much from each other's lives. And yeah, that we wouldn't like that at all, and we would always try to, even if we couldn't talk over the phone, we would always text each other and tell each other what was happening. And yeah,
So in relationships in general, it's always important to communicate things really clearly. In a long distance relationship, when you're relying on things like video chat or calls or text and whatever, it can sometimes be hard to communicate, and there can easily be misunderstandings and things like that, especially if people are pretty stressed out or having a bad day and things like that. So what are some ways, some strategies that you found that you were able to make sure you guys were communicating clearly?
Yeah, definitely. We would have our bad days, and we would be frustrated on some things, and then there'll be technological glitches that were not helping at all. But it's important that you be patient and you be understanding towards your partner, and just if something's not clear, just talk about it again, clarify it again, and clear it out, because that's all you have when you're so far away from each other is talking. And if you're not talking to each other, then you, as I mentioned, then you miss a whole chunk of each other's lives, which you will not get back.
Did you guys plan like when you were going to see each other like fairly far in advance so you'd have that time to look forward to?
Yeah, we would try to meet once every month,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes things would come in between, like school and
Yeah,
work.
for sure.
So we would plan, but then we would have to cancel.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always hard. But yeah, we would plan like a month in advance that yeah we were gonna meet this long weekend, or we were gonna meet this weekend, and that's how. Yeah, we were excited to meet. We always would build up to that moment, and then again like the separation when we would leave, that would be hard again. But
Yeah, because you know it was going to be a little while till you'd see each other again
that's
and that
right.
sort of thing.
But we knew we were gonna eventually again meet each other and
yeah.
yeah spend some time again. Yeah.
And then planning out what you were going to do, you knew you were going to make the most of that time that you had together, which made a big difference probably.
Right. Yeah. We would always we wouldn't do anything special. We wouldn't put so much pressure on ourselves. We would just go for a walk, relax, talk, and just sit at home, watch a movie or watch a show. Even when we were not with each other physically, we would always link up our computers through TeamViewer and watch a movie or a show.
So you do like sort of long distance dates almost, where you would watch
Right.
the same movie together and things like that.
Same TV show or same movie, and we liked a few TV shows that we watched, and we would watch them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then would you guys like have regular phone conversations? Like you would have like a set time where you knew you were going to get to talk to each other, or it was just kind of all the time, spur of the moment sort of thing?
It was basically like we didn't have any set timings, but yeah, we would definitely talk to each other as much as we could
Mm-hmm.
whenever we got time out of our work, out of when I would come back from work. We would always talk, and at night before going to bed,
Yeah.
we would have a video call and talk to each other
Mm-hmm.
and talk about our days and what happened in that day.
Yeah, and you mentioned a bit about how important it is to be there for each other and to know that you can reach that other person when you need to when you are having a hard time. What are some other ways that you found to help sort of build trust within the relationship?
Well, always keep talking. Like
Mhm.
just if you keep on talking, you keep the conversation going, and talk about your feelings, talk about your day, uh, talk about anything like that. That's how you build a trust, and always be there for the other person. Like sometimes we cannot answer the text
Mhm.
right away, and we cannot call back right away. But whenever you get time, just call and text, and yeah, just be there for each other.
Yeah. So COVID-19 has also impacted a lot of people's other relationships, not just with their romantic partners, but with people's extended family and relatives, even friends and stuff like that, because a lot of people have relatives or family that live in different provinces or in different countries. Even when COVID was really bad and we weren't necessarily allowed to visit our family or relatives or friends that lived nearby. Thankfully, restrictions have limited or lightened up a little bit since then, but it's still uncertain times, and we don't really know if we might go back to that stage. But it's definitely impacted everybody's relationships. What are some of your experiences and thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, definitely. Like travel restrictions and social restrictions. Like for me, for as an immigrant coming from India, my family is still in India. My parents and my sister's in Surrey. Coming to my parents, they're in India. They're stuck there. They had a lockdown for like 3 months. They were supposed to visit us this summer. Uh, we were supposed to celebrate our first marriage anniversary together with our parents, and that didn't happen. That we were pretty bummed out about that. We had this whole planned out and everything, but our parents they were stuck in India. They were not allowed to leave
Mm.
their homes basically. Me and Aminder were pretty sad. Were really sad at times, especially the day before our wedding anniversary that we would not be able to celebrate it with our parents. And we would talk on phone, we would video call each other, but it's still not the same for special occasions that your family is not there with you. How about you, Matt? How have your relationship with your family been with COVID?
I'm fairly lucky in that my most of my immediate family is here on the island. So definitely when COVID was in like the early days of the lockdown, we didn't get to see them uh, as much as we had before that. My sister, she lives in Campbell River. She has some sort of more tighter restrictions around what she's able to do because of some health issues and some social things going on with her. So we haven't seen her in a long time. I don't think we've actually had a proper like in-person visit since about last Christmas before COVID all happened. And I myself got married this summer. We had a very small elopement wedding outside, which my sister wasn't able to make it for, unfortunately, because of the
Yeah.
restrictions. And all of our extended family who live in Vancouver and sort of throughout the island, none of them were able to make it, unfortunately. So that was pretty difficult. We're yeah, just sort of having to navigate these times as best we can.
Yeah, I know another thing is that you're also worried about your family not getting sick because for me especially like in India things are pretty bad right now, so you're also worried that your parents are going to work and you're worried because they have to work, uh, they have to basically they have to live,
Hmm.
they have to work, they have to pay for stuff, and you're also worried that they might not get sick, and what will happen if they get sick and then you cannot travel to India. So that's also a big thing for us.
For sure, and then even here on the island right now, a lot of the hospitals aren't allowing visitors, and a lot of care homes, if anybody has relatives in like senior centers, a lot of those places you're not allowed to go visit, and that's very difficult and very isolating for a lot of the old folks who live in places like that, who visiting their family or friends are a large highlight for them, and they look forward to those things. And when they're not able to do that, it can be pretty sad and hard on their mental well-being. And for people who have just regular health concerns and might wind up needing to go into the hospital, and then you're not allowed to go in and visit them when they're in there, that can be incredibly stressful and very difficult to navigate. So definitely really feel for people in those types of situations.
Right, certainly difficult times. I certainly feel that way, and but one thing that human spirit is known for is its endurance, and I think hopefully everything will get better soon, and we will get through this together.
Yeah, for sure. So even though when you guys were dating, COVID wasn't happening because of social distancing and travel restrictions and things like that, a lot of people are having to go into long distance relationships, or their significant others had to travel back to be with family or gotten stuck in other countries, things like that. And then for people who are also trying to start dating people, but maybe can't go on physical dates with people because of health concerns and whatnot. A lot of what you're talking about sounds very applicable to issues that those people are dealing with right now with COVID. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I know, like it was difficult without the COVID, and I can't imagine how difficult it will be right now for people going through it with COVID. The traveling is the most difficult part right now. Like just there's so many travel restrictions, and uh, just leaving your house is so risky. So I can imagine, and I can understand what some people are going through. Uh, Another big thing right now is the uncertainty, just in time and when we'll be able to see our loved ones. Uh, and we're trying, this is a whole new system that we're trying to navigate. We're in this together, but we're not together in physically, right? So we have to take our time. We have to be patient and with each other, and because the reason because is that we both might not be showing the same behavior that we do normally because these are such difficult times, and we're just not normal in this situation because the situation's not normal. So it's important to be patient and be understanding, and we both maybe like both of the people in relationship may be anxious and quick to be angry. Uh, so that's where your patience and your understanding comes in, and that is very important to have right now.
Very true.
But luckily, we have technology on our side. We have internet, we have video calls. So I would say keep talking to each other through video calls and see how that person is doing. Just seeing that other person just sort of relaxes your mind. And sometimes not even saying anything and just being there will do wonders for your relationship. And yeah, just keep talking and keep celebrating even small occasions. Just keep celebrating. Go on video call dates, dinner dates every day. Like you don't have to do anything fancy. Just whatever you're eating at home and whatever the other person might be eating. Just have a video call.
Just have that time together where you're, even if it's not anything fancy, it's
Right.
just time for you two to be together.
Yeah, or just watch a movie or a show and at the same time. And yeah, that'll be like you have that person. You're still be able to talk to that person, even though physically they're not there, but it just keeps you sane, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I know like with the COVID, you're not allowed to get out much, and your social circle is so restricted that you do get frustrated, right? And then it is bound to come. That frustration is bound to come out onto someone. So yeah, just make sure that it's not your the person that you love, and it's so much farther away from you that you don't take that frustration out on that person.
For sure. Yeah. I imagine it would be quite easy to get frustrated at the situation when you're dealing with a bunch of other stuff like that. And so now that you guys are married, you're in a good spot. What are some ways that you find to help relieve some of the stress, if you don't mind talking about that at all?
Yeah, just just listening to your partner, just listen to them, what's bothering them, how their day was, or just keep finding reasons to be happy. Just keep finding reasons to be with each other and hug each other every day, and because being with the loved one that you have with you at home during these times is very important. Some people don't have that, but it's important to have a good social support structure, right? So if you have that and you have someone to love, even though they're not with you, but you can contact them and talk to them, and that's social support structure will keep you going. And I know, knowing human beings, we're social animals. We like to socialize, but it's with the social distancing and the social restrictions, it's difficult right now. That's what I believe. But yeah, keep your COVID bubble small, right? And yeah, like allow the people you trust to enter that bubble, and I'm sure soon it'll be all over, and then we'll be able to hug and kiss our loved ones.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Thank you, Harmon. I'm definitely gonna be able to use some of that advice myself, I think. Can we look forward to your relationship advice podcast starting up anytime soon?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea.
Sounds good to me. Well, Harmon, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for your interview and sharing your experiences and
No
your
problem.
advice.
I'm glad I could help, and happy to be here.
All right, so you have been listening to the interview between Herman and Matt. They were talking about some ways to deal with forming new relationships as well as maintaining relationships in the challenging time of COVID 19. And just to remind our listeners that we are fourth year Bachelors of Science in Nursing students at Vancouver Island University. My name is Aminder, and my co host is Matt. And you are listening to us on A Sound Constitution on 101.7 FM. And you can always tune in to 101.7 FM every Thursday at 2 p.m. For those of you who missed our show, you can always find us on YouTube and Spotify at A Sound Constitution. And now let's take a break and listen to the song by Adele, and the song name is All My Love.
You are listening to All My Love by Adele.
Welcome back. You have been listening to A Sound Constitution on CHLY 101.7 FM with Matt and myself, Aminder. Today we explored the issues that COVID 19 has had on youth, in particular social isolation, and how youth can maintain social connection while at home, including navigating, forming, and maintaining long distance relationships.
Numerous studies have shown that there's a strong connection between somebody's mental health and their physical health. Things like loneliness and isolation can lead to depression later on, which can in turn then impact someone's physical health. And especially now in times of COVID 19, when people are more isolated than ever, it's more important than ever to have strong connections with friends and family and make sure that you have a really good support system.
Not just that, it's really important to discuss many youth who may be struggling with issues surrounding their sexuality or gender identity, such as members of LGBTQ community. They rely heavily on their friends and members of those communities for emotional and social support, which which may have now been negatively impacted by COVID-19.
The period of time during our youth are very important in forming many of our sexual and gender identities, and it's when a lot of people come to know themselves in that way, and it's a period of discovery for a lot of people. So it's really important in that time, particularly, that people have the support that they need. More than ever, it's important to just be patient and understanding with people who are struggling. We found some resources to help with people who might be dealing with some of these issues and in need of some support. One of the programs that we found is Qmunity. It's the letter Q and then MUNITY.ca. They have a phone and a drop-in service. They're located in Vancouver, but you can phone them from the island, and they also do Skype and video calls, and they offer a lot of support for people who might be struggling, particularly with identification and things around the LGBTQ community. And you can also reach them by phone at 604-684-5307, extension 108.
So, to conclude our episode, we have been exploring the issues that COVID 19 has had on youth. And of course, we have been like discussing the social isolation that the youth has been facing and how to maintain the social connection by being at home and then making connections through relationships, creating new bubbles. We also discussed the importance of having a strong social support network on your mental health and well being. We hope you enjoyed our show and please check us out on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We upload all our episodes as podcasts to our YouTube page where you can access our references and other resources. Please feel free to reach out to us as we would love to hear from you. Catch our next episode next Thursday at 2 p.m. on CHLY 101.7 FM.
Yes, we really appreciate you listening to us. And before we go, we would like to play you a TED Talk by Amy Morin. She is a licensed clinical social worker, a psychotherapist, and an author. And she's discussing the secret of becoming mentally strong.
So I have a Facebook friend whose life seems perfect. She lives in a gorgeous house, and she has a really rewarding career. And she and her family go on all these exciting adventures together on the weekends. And I swear that they must take a professional photographer along with them, because no matter where they go or what they do, the whole family just looks beautiful. And she's always posting about how blessed she is and how grateful she is for the life that she has. And I get the feeling she's not just saying those things for the sake of Facebook, but she truly means it. How many of you have a friend kind of like that? And how many of you kind of don't like that person sometimes? We all do this, right? It's hard not to do. But that way of thinking costs us something. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is what our bad habits cost us. Maybe you scroll through your Facebook feed and you think, so what if I roll my eyes? It's just 5 seconds of my time. How could it be hurting me? Well, researchers have found that envying your friends on Facebook actually leads to depression. That's just one of the traps that our minds can set for us. Have you ever complained about your boss? Or looked at your friends' lives and thought, why do they have all the luck? Can't help thinking that way, right? That way of thinking seems small in the moment. In fact, it might even make you feel better in the moment. But that way of thinking is eating away at your mental strength. There's 3 kinds of destructive beliefs that make us less effective and rob us of our mental strength. The first one is unhealthy beliefs about ourselves. We tend to feel sorry for ourselves. And while it's okay to be sad when something bad happens, self-pity goes beyond that. It's when you start to magnify your misfortune. When you think things like, why do these things always have to happen to me? I shouldn't have to deal with it. That way of thinking keeps you stuck, keeps you focused on the problem, keeps you from finding a solution. And even when you can't create a solution, you can always take steps to make your life or somebody else's life better. But you can't do that when you're busy hosting your own pity party. The second type of destructive belief that holds us back is unhealthy beliefs about others. We think that other people can control us, and we give away our power. But as adults who live in a free country, there's very few things in life that you have to do. So when you say, I have to work late, you give away your power. Yeah, maybe there'll be consequences if you don't work late, but it's still a choice. Or when you say, my mother-in-law drives me crazy, you give away your power. Maybe she's not the nicest person on earth, but it's up to you how you respond to her because you're in control. The third type of unhealthy belief that holds us back is unhealthy beliefs about the world. We tend to think that the world owes us something. We think, if I put in enough hard work, then I deserve success. But expecting success to fall into your lap like some sort of cosmic reward will only lead to disappointment. But I know it's hard to give up our bad mental habits. It's hard to get rid of those unhealthy beliefs that we've carried around with us for so long. But you can't afford not to give them up. Because sooner or later, you're going to hit a time in your life where you need all the mental strength that you can muster. When I was 23 years old, I thought I had life all figured out. I graduated from grad school. I landed my first big job as a therapist. I got married, and I even bought a house. And I thought, this is going to be great. I've got this incredible jump start on success. What could go wrong? That all changed for me one day when I got a phone call from my sister. She said that our mother was found unresponsive and she'd been taken to the hospital. My husband Lincoln and I jumped in the car and rushed to the hospital. We couldn't imagine what could be wrong. My mother was only 51. She didn't have any history of any kind of health problems. When we got to the hospital, doctors explained she'd had a brain aneurysm. And within 24 hours, my mother, who used to wake up in the morning saying, "It's a great day to be alive," passed away. That news was devastating to me. My mother and I had been very close. As a therapist, I knew on an intellectual level how to go through grief. But knowing it and doing it can be two very different things. It took a long time before I felt like I was really healing. And then on the 3-year anniversary of my mother's death, some friends called and invited Lincoln and me to a basketball game. Coincidentally, it was being played at the same auditorium where I'd last seen my mother on the night before she passed away. I hadn't been back there since. I wasn't even sure I wanted to go back. But Lincoln and I talked about it, and ultimately we said, maybe that'll be a good way to honor her memory. So we went to the game, and we actually had a really good time with our friends. On the drive home that night, we talked about how great it was to finally be able to go back to that place and remember my mother with a smile, rather than all those feelings of sadness. But shortly after we got home that night, Lincoln said he didn't feel well. A few minutes later, he collapsed. I had to call for an ambulance. His family met me at the emergency room. We waited for what seemed like forever, till finally a doctor came out. But rather than taking us out back to see Lincoln, he took us back to a private room and sat us down and explained to us that Lincoln, who was the most adventurous person I'd ever met, was gone. We didn't know at the time, but he'd had a heart attack. He was only 26. He didn't have any history of heart problems. So now I found myself a 26-year-old widow, and I didn't have my mom. I thought, how am I going to get through this? And to describe that as a painful period in my life feels like an understatement. And it was during that time that I realized when you're really going through tough times, good habits aren't enough. It only takes 1 or 2 small habits to really hold you back. I worked as hard as I could, not just to create good habits in my life, but to get rid of those small habits, no matter how small they might seem. Throughout it all, I held out hope that someday life could get better. And eventually it did. A few years down the road, I met Steve, and we fell in love, and I got remarried. We sold the house that Lincoln and I had lived in, and we bought a new house in a new area, and I got a new job. But almost as quickly as I breathed my sigh of relief over that fresh start that I had, we got the news that Steve's dad had terminal cancer. And I started to think, why do these things always have to keep happening? Why do I have to keep losing all my loved ones? This isn't fair. But if I'd learned anything, it was that that way of thinking would hold me back. I knew I was going to need as much mental strength as I could muster to get through one more loss. So I sat down and I wrote a list of all the things mentally strong people don't do. And I read over that list. It was a reminder of all of those bad habits that I'd done at one time or another that would keep me stuck. And I kept reading that list over and over, and I really needed it, because within a few weeks of writing it, Steve's dad passed away. My journey taught me that the secret to being mentally strong is that you have to give up your bad mental habits. Mental strength is a lot like physical strength. If you wanted to be physically strong, you'd need to go to the gym and lift weights. But if you really wanted to see results, You'd also have to give up eating junk food. Mental strength is the same. If you want to be mentally strong, you need good habits like practicing gratitude. But you also have to give up bad habits like resenting somebody else's success. No matter how often that happens, it'll hold you back. So, how do you train your brain to think differently? How do you give up those bad mental habits that you've carried around with you? It starts by countering those unhealthy beliefs that I talked about with healthier ones. For example, unhealthy beliefs about ourselves mostly come about because we're uncomfortable with our feelings. Feeling sad or hurt or angry or scared, those things are all uncomfortable. So we go to great lengths to avoid that discomfort. We try to escape it by doing things like hosting a pity party. And although that's a temporary distraction, it just prolongs the pain. The only way to get through uncomfortable emotions, the only way to deal with them is that you have to go through them, to let yourself feel sad and then move on, to gain confidence in your ability to deal with that discomfort. Unhealthy beliefs about others come about because we compare ourselves to other people. We think that they're either above us or below us, or we think that they can control how we feel or that we can control how they behave, or we blame them for holding us back. But really, it's our own choices that do that. You have to accept that you're your own person and other people are separate from you. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person that you were yesterday. And unhealthy beliefs about the world come about because deep down, we want the world to be fair. We want to think that if we put in enough good deeds, enough good things will happen to us. Or if we tough it out through enough bad times, we'll get some sort of reward. But ultimately, you have to accept that life isn't fair. And that can be liberating. It means you won't necessarily be rewarded for your goodness, but it also means no matter how much you've suffered, you're not doomed to keep suffering. The world doesn't work that way. Your world is what you make it. But of course, before you can change your world, you have to believe that you can change it. I once worked with this man who'd been diabetic for years. His doctor referred him to therapy because he had some bad mental habits that were starting to affect his physical health. His mother had died from complications of diabetes at a young age, so he just believed he was doomed, and he'd given up, trying to manage his blood sugar altogether. In fact, his blood sugar had gotten so high lately that it was starting to affect his vision, and he had his driver's license taken away, and his world was shrinking. When he came into my office, it was clear he knew all the things he could do to manage his blood sugar. He just didn't think it was worth the effort. But eventually, he agreed to make one small change. He said, I'll give up my 2-liter-a-day Pepsi habit, and I'll trade it in for Diet Pepsi. And he couldn't believe how quickly his numbers started to improve. And even though he came every week to remind me how horrible Diet Pepsi tasted, he stuck with it. And once he started to see a little bit of improvement, he said, well, maybe I could look at some of my other habits. And he said I could trade in my nightly bowl of ice cream for a snack with a little less sugar. And then one day he was at a thrift store with some friends, and he found this beat-up old exercise bike. He bought it for a couple of bucks, and he brought it home and he parked it in front of his TV. And he started to pedal while he'd watch some of his favorite shows every night. And not only did he lose weight, but one day he noticed he could see the TV just a little bit more clearly than he had before. And suddenly it occurred to him, maybe the damage done to his eyesight wasn't permanent. So he set a new goal for himself to get his driver's license back. And from that day forward, he was on fire. By the end of our time together, he was coming in every week saying, okay, what are we going to do this week? Because he finally believed that he could change his world and that he had the mental strength to change it and that he could give up his bad mental habits. And it all started with just one small step. So I invite you to consider what bad mental habits are holding you back. What unhealthy beliefs are keeping you from being as mentally strong as you could be? And what's one small step that you could take today, right here, right now? Thank you.
You are listening to the TED Talk by Amy Moran. She is a licensed clinical social worker, as discussed in the beginning, and she's also a psychotherapist and author, and she was discussing the secret of becoming mentally strong. And thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate you listening to our show. Please stay tuned every Thursday at 2 p.m. only on CHLY 101.7 FM.